What do you think it comes first, happiness or success? We will know shortly by our special guest, Roberta Saffels. Roberta's competences include team coaching, talent development, leadership coaching, and mentoring in positive psychology. Please welcome Roberta.
Thank you. I think I'm loud enough. You tell me. Yeah, I'm loud enough. I got to keep my timer here now that everybody's checking on the time. I need to make sure I'm following the time. I tend to talk a little bit too long sometimes. But what a pleasure to be here with you guys. Thank you, Reem, for inviting me to be a part of your group in Toastmasters. I've been curious about you for a while, so this is my first time, so thank you. I feel very honored to be here. So today, we're going to be talking about a topic that is very dear to my heart. What comes first? Success or happiness? Let's see. We'll see. So I want to invite you to maybe imagine that you are in front a crossroads, and to one path you have this glittery road full of trophies aligned with the end sign that says success. And on the other side you have another road that is maybe like warm, full of beautiful gardens and this perfect maybe winter sun that kind of gives us that warmth in the times where we're wanting a little bit of a warmth, and a sign that says happiness. Which one would you choose? But maybe we don't have to choose. Tonight we're not going to be talking about necessarily the choice between those two roads, but how they intertwine. Where do they meet? Where do they cross? And how do we get to our final destination? Where do we want to go as individuals in our life journey? When we are maybe a little older, we want to look back. Where have I gone? So it's important that we think about those questions so that we decide where do my priorities need to go today in order to get to where I want to be. So I want to ask you with a show of hands, if you had to, I'm not going to ask you later, but just for a fun exercise, if you had to, or if you had to answer the question, what comes first? So if you think that success comes first, would you raise your hands? Okay, a few of you. And if you think that happiness comes first, please raise your hands. Many of you. But there is a mix, which most groups do have a mix. What is our priority? What's most important? And is it a real dichotomy or maybe a false dichotomy? Let's see where we go together. So it's interesting that our cultures, our societies, they're kind of like prescriptive in what should we do. It's almost like we're given a checklist. And maybe part of that checklist is marriage, maybe kids, maybe a good job, maybe a good fat bank account, yeah? Maybe a house, maybe. Could be many things. The expectations that society puts on us to what success means, right? Sometimes they align with our own expectations and our own desires, but sometimes it is the pressure around us that actually leads that. Tonight, we're going to explore a little bit about the different views around happiness and success. We're going to look at a little bit about the science of happiness. And we're going to talk about a story or two of that question lingering the lives of maybe some people that we might be familiar with. So that's what we have. So let's see where this road leads us. Yeah? So the big question, what comes first? Happiness or success? So our society is kind of obsessed with the notion of success, isn't it? I don't know how you feel, but I think in my experience, there's kind of like this thing of chasing it, as if we're going after something that sometimes we don't even know what we're going after. A little bit like the thoughts that you mentioned. It's kind of this invisible thing, and I'm kind of going after, not quite sure. What does it look like in the end, right? And then sometimes that success is defined by society, sometimes it's defined by us. It could be that I'm looking for jobs that make me feel successful. There might be some personal goals, as I mentioned earlier, marriage, family, things like that. Sometimes it's success.
Your own business also can make you successful.
It could be that you have your own business and that makes you successful, yeah. But it could be that you want to appear successful in social media. Anybody on Instagram? Yeah, no judgment, but it might be a goal that you're famous. How many followers do you have? It could be, right? What is that measure of success? But then there is this other thing that is kind of like a fleeting thing that comes around and goes, called happiness. It kind of passes by and we're like, this moment was happy, that moment was happy, but we again can't quite grasp it and put it in a little box and wrap it beautifully. It feels fleeting and it feels like it comes and goes in some way. So it's interesting that we are kind of looking at this thing. We kind of have to almost decide, do I go sprinting after success? Or do I actually want to spend time nurturing the seeds of happiness that will lead to a life of happiness? But we think about maybe success is the key that is going to unlock the door for happiness to enter, for me to enter into this magical happily ever after. That success just opened that door. Once I don't know about you, but have you found yourself kind of thinking about when, fill in the blank, I will be happy? So when I get the job, I will be happy. When I get the promotion, I will be happy. When I get whatever, the house, the car of that brand that year, the purse, with 100% free discount.
Can I add one?
It might be. Yeah, you can add one.
When I'm happy to spend time with my family.
Oh, that's a beautiful one. Wonderful. I'm going to bring it back later. You're spending time through your family. But sometimes the traditional way of measuring success is maybe the size of our bank account, maybe all of those things that I mentioned just now. But yeah, it's kind of like we put this happiness on hold. There's a condition to happiness, yeah? As if it's waiting for us to let it out until we have those things, yeah? So we're kind of, this model of what success looks like is almost ingrained in us. This is the only way to think about success. But what if success actually was invited in by happiness? What if it was the other way around? It was happiness that actually gave us the ability, the superpower potentially, to get to where we want to go. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to look a little bit, and I want to invite you to go with me, into the science of happiness. There's this science called positive psychology. And trust me, it's not just smiley faces and positive thinking. That's the stuff you see online, right? It's a very robust empirical science that studies what makes life worth living. And in that, the pioneer of the science is Dr. Martin Seligman, which is one of my dear professors, who has really studied deeply into the concept of PERMA, the theory of well-being. And PERMA stands for positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement. So let's go deep a little bit on each one of those. So if I think about positive emotions, for example, what positive emotions does to us is actually it allows our cognitive capacity to expand. The research from Dr. Frederickson says that when I am experiencing positive emotion, I have a greater cognitive capacity, I'm more creative, I'm a better problem solver, and I have then the ability to develop some skills and some ways of coping, and then I become more resilient. Yeah? Optimism is a predictor of many of the things we go after. If I'm optimistic, as a predictor of higher income, longer life, better immune system. Amazing, right? So that's just some positive emotions. If we go into engagement is like flow. Dr. Csikszentmihalyi, which is a very hard name to say, by the way, Dr. Csikszentmihalyi studied this, the concept of flow. And flow is when I am in a state of absorption of the thing that I'm looking at, that I'm engaged in, that I'm working on, that I kind of lose track of time. I'm so in it, I'm so consumed by it that I lose track of time. And it's an amazing feeling of like, it's not easy, but it's kind of hard enough to keep you in it. So it's a fantastic feeling, that feeling of engagement, of interest, deep interest in what you are doing. And then we have R for relationships. If I were to choose one of the 5, relationships is the key. So what Ayman said, like spending time with my family, that's an incredible aim and recipe for happiness. It's like really deepening connections with people in general. There are studies around micro moments of connections, which might be just a conversation you and I have for 2 minutes, but it feels deep. And that is really good for our well-being. But it might be even at work. The studies around high quality connections that increases job satisfaction and all the wonderful things we would like to have in our works, the study of Dr. Dutton. And then we go into meaning. Meaning is understanding that your life is a part of something bigger than you are, than just you. And that's very important for our sense of happiness. And then last but not least, achievements. Dr. Duckworth studied grit, which is like you're actually kind of like that strength, that commitment that comes when you want to perform and you want to get that goal, right? But achievement, as you can see, is one out of an array of parts of this framework that comes into happiness. So it's important that we understand that happiness is more than one thing. And it might be that the skills that I learn and the things that I focus on can be leveraged in my pursuit of success. A quick story is the story of Michael Phelps. How many of you know Michael Phelps, have heard of Michael Phelps? One of the greatest swimmers of our times, the greatest Olympian with the most gold medals in the history of the Olympic Games. But it's said that Michael Phelps, at the top, at the pinnacle of his career, was not happy. And you would think, if happiness is the key, how come he's not happy? And it was in his own search to reassess what is really happiness that he realized, unless I spend time investing on my relationships, on my personal development, I am not going to be happy. So it's interesting. And maybe you and I, even though we are not Olympians, I'm imagining no Olympians in the room, maybe. But we had our Phelps moments, right? Where we feel like we got that promotion and we thought we were going to feel like on top of the world. And then we get there and it's like, not quite what I imagined. There's kind of like an emptiness that goes, right? And that's normal because happiness is multidimensional. It's multidimensional. So it's not just one thing. It can't be just one thing. It's multiple things. So I want to invite you to consider reassessing your priorities, to consider thinking, how can I leverage that will make me happy in order to fuel my pursuit of success, rather than be waiting for success to arrive, to unlock that door so that I can finally be happy. So I want you to consider, imagine a world in which our greatest pursuit would be to nurture joy, to connect with the people we interact with, to really spend our lives for the service of others, I bet that our achievements would be measured very differently. So I want you to think about it. Thank you very, very much. God bless you.